Hello and good summer's evening. I hope you are enjoying the beautiful weather that we are having. Unfortunately, I do not have a beautiful summery subject, but rather a wintry theme, almost adding a sting to the tale. And that is, the government are planning to sell off billions of student debt to private companies. Now, what I find quite alarming and indeed disappointing is that here we have a country that is so divided economically, where it takes great effort for the working class to be able to even attempt to get access to education, to university. And therefore, by actually implementing this wicked and unjust move, it is actually maintaining a social hierarchy where the rich are able to afford to send their children to universities and the working class cannot. It is unfair and unjust, especially coming from a government who claims that they want to be equal for all, give everyone the same opportunities, work hard, and the reward is great. We don't see that evidence at all. It appears that Theresa May's government are implementing yet again a further unfair society where the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. And yet, what I find ironic is the same government that have a very short memory every time it comes to a general election. They go knocking on the same door of the same poor people, begging and pleading for their votes. And of course we vote for it and we vote them in. Now, what I find interesting is that should the government introduce this wicked and vicious proposal, this can be devastating in the long run for students who graduate, because you will forever be in debt, which means you cannot get access to mortgage, etc., because you forever are paying off the debt to the company. It also, the dangers of this is that the companies then can decide how much they will take from you and put on whatever interest that they feel they want to do. But of course, there is no ethical thinking behind this wickedness. The Theresa May's government is purely about profit. They are purely driven by greed, and therefore ethics does not even come into the equation. We are looking and we are experiencing a very vicious, class-driven Britain. It is based on class, whether we like it or not. And the government are driving this agenda, and they could not convince you even anymore than to make the bridge between the rich and the poor even greater. The nature of the companies that Theresa May's government are selling off students' loans to, billions of pounds of students' loans, the government don't even go into the background, whether they've done shady deals. Let me give an example. Not many people know this, A lot of NHS buildings, equipments have been sold off to private companies, and I think one or two of these private companies had a very bad, shady past. It did not bother, what's his name, or Anthony something, who's the Secretary of Health, did not even bother the government, because they're all about money and ethics does not even come into it. So sell it to the highest bidder, no matter who you are. And what I find quite interesting is how in 2017 this 18th century value, where the peasants work in the fields and the rich people are the ones who acquire the acquisition of education, knowledge, studying Latin and history and politics and law. These are the people, the students from well-heeled family, who become the leaders. The government are deliberately creating a class Britain where the elite rule the sheep. The elite, they control the agenda, and the people who are working class or from a lower orders do not get access to education. If you look at Eton and Oxford and Harrow and Cambridge, all your leaders come from those type of universities. All your leaders you are voting for, they do not understand anything to do with struggle, anything to do with having to work and juggle and study. They don't care. They are worlds apart from this reality. And therefore, it doesn't bother them that they are going to sell billions of pounds of student debts. They're going to totally dismiss it and not even have an accountability. Before or at present, the government takes the debt off you. I think it's probably 10% of your salary. 10%. Now they're going to sell it off to private companies, which means they can put their own interest rate on it. They can decide how long it takes or how short you have to pay it off. It means there'll be more lawsuits, but the government don't care about that. What this means is that the government simply do not want the working class to have access to education, which is why they introduced the NVQs. NVQs are equivalent to just basic manhandling, understanding farming, understanding factories, and they totally got rid of humanities subject, science, because as far as they are concerned, those kind of subjects are only for the elite, rich families. So Britain is becoming really divided in regards to class and economics. Yet the same people will vote the same government. Sadly, Jack Straw and Tony Blair, when they were in power, I do apologize, when they were students, they went protesting about student loans, etc. In fact, most politicians did that while they were students. The same politicians who graduate and get into power then oppress the students coming up. It's a vicious capitalist cycle. Everyone whinges and moans when they're feeling the heat, but as soon as they leave that kitchen, they then continue to oppress the next generation that's coming up. In other words, we're all thinking of ourselves number one. You look at history of the government who are in power, they all rebelled at one point or another. They all protested over tuition fees, and the same students that graduate are the same students that introduce worse and far more tuition fees than the previous generation. It gets nasty and it gets vicious. If we don't allow the working class to have access to education, society will become really unequal. And we cannot drag society back into 18th century values, not in an era of 2017. A modern society, it does not work. The only solution to this is a working class revolt, a revolution. If Theresa May gets her way, if her government gets her way, and she implements selling off billions of pounds of student debt to private companies, then the universities will only be attended by the rich and the powerful. And that is wrong. Something has to be done. What are you going to do about it?